Hello and welcome to another episode of Teach Me to Sports Bet. I'm here with my trusty teacher, veteran sportscaster, Dave Bontempo. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Kimmy, how are you? 2-0 now.
I am good. I'm feeling good. I will tell you, we'll go through my bets in a minute, but all of my games that I bet on were at the same time on Sunday, and I was so excited that I won that I wanted to bet some more, but I started to look, and then I said, nope, table it, wait till next week, and I walked away. So I'm proud of myself for doing that because I got so caught up in the moment I wanted to play some more.
Well, that was smart because your blood pressure would have had to endure the Sunday night game being decided on the final play. So did you have 3.5 hours to wait for that outcome? That's up to you.
So I lost my free bet. I bet the $5 on the Kansas City Chiefs at plus 8.5. I was really shocked at their performance. I guess I just expected them to adjust better, and I felt like they just never did.
Yeah, their body language was not very good, and but they still did find a way to do it in overtime,
No.
which saved a lot of bacon. I know people that had some 5-team parlays just on the money line and needed Kansas City to win that game, and they did pull it out for those bettors. Interestingly, about an hour before that game, they couldn't find anybody taking the Chargers at 8.5 points. So there was a real risk. I mean, the books would have cleaned up totally had the Chargers won that game. But their body language wasn't the same, Kansas City, as their first game.
So the other thing that I found I didn't really like very much was I'm so used to just rooting for the winners, but now I have to root for the winners to win by a certain amount of points or whatever. And so when the Kansas City Chiefs were getting to overtime, it was pretty exciting. And then I realized it didn't really matter for me.
No, you can't get that. And that's why the thing about that is anytime you are giving more than a touchdown, well, that's the extent that you can usually win by an overtime.
Yeah.
Well, you can't ask the team to win the game twice for you. They're happy to win it once for themselves. They're not thinking, hey, we have to cover this game as well. So, but you did really well with the picks that came out. You took chalk teams, you took blue chip enterprises, and you won with Arizona and Baltimore. You did very well.
I got them both at minus 6.5. I bet them early, like you suggested. In fact, I might have even bet them like on Tuesday, so really early in the week. And so I was really excited with that. I put $20 on the Cardinals and $10 on the Ravens. Now, my free bet on Kansas City is sort of a wash because it wasn't out of my bankroll. It was just a free bet, so I'm not counting that. But so with my $30 wagered, I have to put on my glasses because I can't see. With my $30 wagered, I ended up winning $55.40, so plus $25.
Now, the way you've been betting, which is the average of about $30 a week, you won another week is basically what you did if you want to measure it that way. And that's beautiful. You were 2 for 2. You won the games you needed to win. The one that you lost doesn't really count. And you remembered our first lesson, that you didn't bet something you didn't love. So that was important for you.
So the interesting thing about the free bet, if it was my money, I would not have made that bet on Kansas City. But we talked about, playing around a little bit. So I liked Kansas City, and I would never bet them. I felt the points were too high from what we talked about. And now that they went to overtime, that 7-point rule thing is really impactful. Like, it made me understand a lot why that's a good number. I started with a bankroll of $500, and my bankroll is up to $785.95 to be exact. Now, not all of that is my winnings because I got some bonus money for the deposits, and it's not all clear yet, but I'm really excited to see that number.
Well, how many investments can return 60% in a month or even in 2 weeks? So, yes, and there is a certain giddiness about winning anything, but especially you look up there and you played it just right. You took your 100 to 1 and you put that, I guess it was on the Ravens a couple weeks ago, was it to get your guaranteed win? And then you parlayed that from there. You only lost your free bets out of there and it bankrolled. So right now you have been following textbook procedure to get up near $300 already.
Give me time, I'll mess it up. But that does bring one of my big questions. I felt comfortable looking at the games we talked about. If we didn't talk about it, I didn't even really go there. And I think that's just going to be my strategy for a little while longer, because there's just so much. It's crazy. But one of my big questions is, when I went to go place my bets, I have no idea, like, an optimal amount. I don't know if there is an optimal amount. I know in poker, when I used to play poker, there were some rules about bankroll and how much you should bet. And so my big question is how much should I be betting?
So a couple weeks ago, you said you started with $500 and you wanted to make it last the season. If that's true, then you average about $30 a week. So that's a good way for you to start to go in. Now, your first week you were even, so you have $30 more that in the pool. You win $30 more. The good thing, you want to avoid what some people do after they win a little bit. They say, "Oh, I won last week, I'm going to pour it into this week." I say no. Keep each week as a separate chapter in the ongoing story, so that you can contain. Now, if you like something a little bit more, well, you can go over if there's a very good reason for it in your mind. If you love something, then you can put a little bit more on it. But I say stay with that budget in mind, because you want to still be talking about how much money you have left in December.
Yes.
From that 500 plus what you've added to it. Plus, you're off to a beautiful start. So you know what? Stay with what's been working for you. Keep around that $30 until you just love something more.
Okay, fair enough. So the other question I had was, when I was placing bets, was with the Cardinals and the Washington football team, it was minus 6.5 plus 6.5, and then it had a little 110 next to both of those numbers. But with the Ravens, it had a 118. I don't know what that means. So
well, was that on the money line or the spread that you saw that with the Ravens? You probably
spread.
On the spread. Okay. Usually they're both minus 110, because that's the VIG. That is what you are paying for the privilege of betting those teams. Now, what happens is they say, "Here you go, take it." Sometimes with certain teams, they have to coax and cajole that number, because if you see minus 118 for the Ravens, they're probably giving you a little bit better break on the overall point spread in exchange for that number going from 110 to minus 118. So, but that minus 118, and that basically you're giving 20% of your win right off the bat, as opposed to giving 10% of your win. And that's why these all have to figure into the calculations. And when we do this deeper, you realize you can choose your betting line at a different price for hundreds of bets throughout the week. That's why it's good to stay with what you know and what you're comfortable with.
So I also was really excited, because I think even the next day, the Ravens went up to -7. And then I think it was a day or two later, the Cardinals went up to -7. So I felt like I got a pretty good deal. So I was excited about that. And I did toy with looking at something else for the weekend. But you know what? I was just comfortable.
I would not have told you to do too much more, because some people want to bet every game, and that's not a good idea. Maybe 4 or 5 games, if you really love the games, is good. But you've already found your principle. Now, we can expand your base of knowledge so that you can maybe love some more games as you go on, as you find patterns. But I think that you stayed to the script. And look, if you had played that Sunday night game with Seattle and New England, that spread and the money line game, and Johnny Avello told me just now, millions of dollars in betting across the nation rode on one play.
Oh my God.
Cam Newton of the New England Patriots tried a quarterback sneak on the final play of the game. He was stopped. Seattle won by 5 points, and the line was 4.5. So that's why, could you imagine that for 3 hours? And then if you lose that? So I think you were good to stay with where you did.
Well, I think part of it was I just don't know if my heart can take it.
Yes.
But the other part was I didn't want to make a rushed bet. I wanted to make a more measured bet. And I just didn't feel like I didn't want to do something in the heat of the moment. So I'm trying to be disciplined. I'm trying.
You are.
So far,
you are succeeding at being disciplined, which is why you are up. Your research led you to 2 games. Now, here are just a couple of things to introduce into the database that we've talked about. Last week, we talked about the database of the running quarterbacks, because those teams do very well. Now, sometimes you'll have 2 teams with the running quarterbacks, and that negates that. But another thing I want to introduce and for people to look this week is 2 quarterbacks that are rookies played very well last week. Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals led his team to a cover. They didn't win, but they covered the spread. And a guy I was really impressed with, Justin Herbert of the Los Angeles Chargers, he was a surprise starter and looked more poised than a lot of quarterbacks that have come out. Both of them were first-round draft picks in the NFL. So they're both playing very well. Their teams both covered the spread last week. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals are 2-0 against the spread this year, even though they've lost both games. I want to bring back a memory to think about this. Last year, the Miami Dolphins, they didn't win many games, but they covered in 9 of their last 12 games because they kept the games close. These teams, Los Angeles and Cincinnati, are good enough to keep their teams in the game. So keep an eye on that. We've been talking about the favorite side, which you played last week. These teams might be pretty good on the underdog side. So watch them as the weeks unfold. They might be good under the radar bets because people think their teams can't win, but they get a lot of points.
So that's what you noticed when watching the games last week?
Yes, I was impressed with both of those quarterbacks, and their presence with their ability to lead the team was very good. Now, Cincinnati it's down to 6 points now against the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay, they're not expected to win, but if you give them 6 points every week, there's a good chance they're going to cover the spread a lot. And the Chargers are giving 6 points to the Carolina Panthers, but the Panthers are losing their best player, whose name is Christian McCaffrey. So these are things to put into your database as well. That's from the underdog side.
So how long have you been doing this?
Well, I've been following football probably since the 1980s, and betting football, well, since the 1980s. But I don't bet heavily. I do not bet heavily on football. I save my money for the racetrack because the horses are my favorite thing. But I love playing it, and I love playing online, in game, and watching how the numbers move. But it is fascinating to watch all these patterns, and so I think it's good for people to pick up on it. It will be helpful.
You watch the games, and every week you come out with this amazing, insightful advice or something you've noticed, and like I couldn't even begin to think like that. It's crazy. That's why I was asking. I think it's impressive. You impressed me.
Thank you for the compliment. And what we've said to people about feeling like what you want to bet, You can go online and you can get all these different handicapping services and everybody's opinion, but their data is what's feeding their opinion. And which one do you support? Which one do you trust? I say you trust what's in your gut because that's what you learned and taught yourself.
Are we going to learn something new today?
Well, we learned about the other thing with Burrow and Justin Herbert. That's one thing that I would advise on that.
Okay.
To put that into your database. Continue monitoring the quarterbacks on the running teams,
Okay.
and keep an eye on one particular game this week because it was
Okay.
a crazy game with the Atlanta Falcons and the Dallas Cowboys last week. In this game, the Atlanta Falcons committed it's like an NFL shame. They were the first team in history to score 39 points and never turn the ball over and still lose the game. They lost a 15-point lead. And one bet MGM better took $35,000 with a 15-point lead and 4 minutes to go. And he made a money line bet on the Falcons, which the odds of them losing were more than 3,000 to 1. But they lost. He bet $35,000 trying to win $1,000, Kimmy. I'm assuming it's a he. I mean, I'm assuming it's a he. Could have been a she also, but
that's a bad bet. You told me that.
Yes, it's bad because you have limited upside and big downside. So that was a bad leverage thing that happened there. So, but Atlanta now, they got denied a victory and they're playing at home against Chicago this week, the Chicago Bears. They're 3.5-point favorites. If they have any professional pride, they will come out and they will win this game convincingly. I mean, that's just how it goes. You feel so frustrated. So there might be a little angle on maybe a small play to consider there because this team now, they're angry. They played well enough to win and they didn't get it.
So I did look up the odds on my Cardinals, and they are minus 5.5 against the Lions, who are 0-2. Look at me talking like I know what I'm talking about.
There you go. Yeah.
So I have a couple of questions about this because if the Lions are 2-0 or 0-2 and we're 2-0, why is that such a small number? I mean, I'm happy it's a small number, right? Especially if you want to bet the Cardinals, but to me, I wonder why.
Yes, so that's a good question. You would think that would be maybe an 8-point line based on the team's natural strengths. But last year, sometimes Detroit goes to the West Coast and you think they're going to get blown out and they cover the spread. They don't win the game. And there's another angle. The entire betting world doesn't know all about the Cardinals yet. And say, now we've been picking up on them early and you rode them last week and you made a bet on them. Okay. After this week, if the Cardinals are 3-0 after this week, then forget about being under the radar. You know, but 5.5, 6 points is still, that's still winning by almost a touchdown. And that's about where they think the relative strength of the teams are.
Do we like Cardinals again this week?
I do on a nudge. I think that they should win the game. The thing with Detroit is they're a team that seems to have a lot of talent, but then they shoot themselves in the foot at the wrong time and totally hurt themselves. They were defeating the Packers for a quarter and a half last week and then lost by 21 points. They had a 17-point lead against the Chicago Bears in the first week, a 98% win probability in the fourth quarter, and they lost. How do you lose with a 98% win probability? That's because their quarterback, Matthew Stafford, has been making some very big mistakes. So they're a good team, but they make costly mistakes. And that's why if they would eliminate some of them, then they would be very competitive in the game.
If I take what you just told me about the Atlantic Falcons, that they have team pride, they're going to come out and play hard. Well, I would almost venture to say that might hold true for the Lions as well. If they're making these mistakes, at some point they're going to hopefully stop. Well, I mean, not against my Cardinals, hopefully not, but they're going to stop making the mistakes. And so you don't sound very confident about the Cardinals this week, in my opinion.
It seems to me like a smaller bet to
Okay.
me than last week, just based on, can Detroit keep making these mistakes? I mean, Matthew Stafford threw an interception that went for a touchdown against Green Bay. But if you rattle him, he will make those mistakes. He really will. The question is whether you think the Cardinals can keep blowing teams out. Now, they did against the Washington football team last week, and they're showing that they are a coming team.
Yeah.
But the odds makers haven't totally bought into it yet, and they're going to.
Well, because we have a reputation too. We're, I love my Cardinals. I've been a fan forever. But we have a reputation of not always living up to our potential either.
Well, and especially at home.
Yes.
Believe it or not, they've had more trouble at home. But there is a little air of expectation about this team. And I think that you watch after this week, if the Cardinals win this game, now you're going to hear a lot of media, the arrival of the Cardinals. This is a new team, the Cardinals. Now, we already know that. You've got one more week to be in before everybody knows the secret. So I still like them, but Detroit has weapons if they don't shoot themselves in the foot. So that's why I go a little smaller. Washington, I didn't think had many weapons.
Okay, are there any other games that we're going to maybe look at this week?
Yes, and some will be for betting and some will be for pure enjoyment. Game must watch. The Los Angeles Rams go and visit the Buffalo Bills. Both teams are 2-0. Both teams scored more than 30 points last week in road victories. So they can both, win on the road. And the Buffalo Bills are giving 2.5 points right now to the Rams. So that's a great game to bet and a great game to watch. And the game of the year so far, the one you have to watch, Monday night, the Baltimore Ravens against the Kansas City Chiefs, Monday Night Football. That is one that's going to be terrific. Yeah. It has the classic feel of the Ravens winning by exactly 3 points, okay, with these top-level matchups. And guess what the line is? 3 points, and it just moved to 3.5 points this morning in favor of the Ravens. Now, if I looked at last week's Ravens game and last week's Chief game, I would be jumping on the Ravens and playing them, figuring that Kansas City is due to lose the game. It's too straight. So there you go. Now you have your gut. Hey, one other aspect. There are 4 games. We talk about the over-under totals. There are 4 games above 50 this week, and you almost never see that. So scoring is up in the NFL so far this year.
So over-under is the total points scored by both teams, and you bet it will be either over that number or under that number.
Yes. And traditionally, most of the numbers are in the 40s, low 40s to mid 40s. Now we're seeing high 40s to low and mid 50s because the teams are scoring more. At the 2-point conversion has helped a few more games go to that level. Oh, and I wanted to throw in one thing I did not get in earlier, teams to watch. The Las Vegas Raiders are 2-0, and they beat the New Orleans Saints last night and looked convincing doing that. They are a breakout team in the same mold as the Arizona Cardinals.
And who do they play next week?
They play in New England on Sunday, and that's a great game. And the Raiders are getting 6 points. And, we talked about the running quarterbacks, New England. Cam Newton already has 4 rushing touchdowns for the Patriots. Tom Brady would not get that in the course of a season and a half.
So I feel like last week after our discussion, I had sort of a plan, and I just went out and did a little bit of reading to verify that that's what I wanted to do. I don't really feel like I have a plan this time.
Well, it's early. It's early in the week. You're going to bet something on your Cardinals. It's just a matter of whether you want to bet more or whether you want to bet less. The
Right.
Ravens, who you bet last week, are in a tight game, so you have to look at them a little bit differently. And
Yeah.
maybe what you have to do is extend yourself out to other teams and see what you feel like what you feel like doing. And next week we'll have a special homework assignment for you to do on a dabble, just on a dabble basis with one of your free bets if you're up for it.
Homework.
Homework, yes, homework. There's no homework when it's gambling, it's research.
That's right. I wonder if I can, charge it to my company.
I think so. And make sure you charge mileage to go from your kitchen to the den where you have to go look this information up. Charge by the step.
What about, I know we talked about bonuses, and there are some good bonuses out there again, or at least one good bonus, especially for new players. I think it's the bonus I took advantage of a few weeks ago. Is that right?
Yes, and DraftKings is bringing it back where you take $1 and you bet on any team you want to just win the game outright, and then you have $100, and when they win, and then from there you go and do whatever you want. Now, the beauty of the first week is you knew you had some great teams. This week you have tougher matchups.
Yeah.
The largest favorite is the Indianapolis Colts, giving the New York Jets 10.5 points at home. So that's the largest spread in football if you're looking in that direction. So take a crack at it. It's a must bet, but they do that. And also Johnny Avello just told me today that when they did their first promotion, which was they gave everybody 101 points on the Kansas City Chiefs because it was the 101st season of the NFL on Thursday night. He said they gave away $20 million that weekend to the bettors. He said we love to give money away.
Yeah, right. They like to make money too. Otherwise, they wouldn't do business for much longer. So I can't take advantage of the $1 bet anymore because I'm not new customer anymore. I've already gathered my bonuses. But if anybody's new out there, it really helped build my bankroll very quickly. I think that's quite amazing, honestly. So, and you have nothing to lose.
And it might be good to tell people, again, people who might be seeing this for the first time, what did you do after you got your 100 to build yourself back up? Because you used free bets, and then you used other mechanisms.
So when I deposited for the first time to take advantage of that $1 to $100 bet, I deposited $500 and I got a 20% bonus on that. So another $100. Plus I had the winning bet, so I got that $100. Plus I got 5 free $5 bets. I've used 2 of them. I've won one and I lost one. And I think, and I still have one risk-free bet left, which I haven't used, which means if I lose the bet, I get the bet back, but I have to incite credits. So it's not like they're just giving me my money back. And not all of it's free for me to withdraw right now. I have some playthrough requirements. So I still have that risk-free bet. I have 30 days to use it. So I have about, 20 days left. So it's something that I might use if I want to bet bigger on something.
Yes.
I don't feel like I want to bet bigger this week yet, but I'm going to have to make that decision in the next week or two. So.
Well, yeah, expand that database, and then that will expand what you have a feel for week to week. And then instead of having 2 teams that you follow, maybe you'll get a sense of 5 or 6 teams. And even if you don't bet the things we talked about, take a look at them and get a sense for how these teams do in situations. Even if you don't bet Atlanta, say to yourself, I'll pretend I did bet Atlanta, and how would it have turned out?
Yeah.
Put it into your knowledge file. Build up that knowledge file, and you'll build up more about more teams.
That's probably it, to be honest. Right now I feel like I know two teams, the Ravens and my Cardinals.
Yes.
I will say that I talked to the lead writer over at Play NJ, Bill Gelman, and he is not betting on the Philadelphia Eagles even yet. He says he's not quite comfortable with it. I'm going to read you. So I'm going to read, but he noticed that the 49ers are only a 4-point favorite over the Giants, but a lot of injuries are in play.
Correct. Correct.
Sort of curious as to what you might think about that.
Well, I would look at that and see there's one key player. The San Francisco 49er quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, they're now saying he may play. So the injuries affect the line. As soon as they said he may play, that line went from 4 to 4.5 points on a may play. If Jimmy Garoppolo plays, that line is 5 or 6 points. And the 49ers, they're comfortable on the field. They just won there because they beat the Jets. The Jets and Giants share the same home field, and the Giants make a ton of mistakes. So the Giants have to play with desperation, and the 49ers are banged up, but it's still the 49ers and it's still the Giants. So it's hard to make a play with faith on the Giants at this point, despite the injuries of the 49ers.
Interesting. Okay. Any last words of advice before we call it a show?
Yes, I have a few bettors in line. They're going to be calling you up, asking for a loan from Kimmy Savings and Loan, because I understand you have almost $300 in winnings already. And just continue to have fun with everything else you're doing in your life. What's more fun than this on the level that you're enjoying it? So keep on enjoying it. It's a beautiful ride.
Well, tell those bettors they need to get in line behind my kids, because I'm sure they're already doing it. And I do want to keep it fun because it's stressful watching the games when I'm betting for fun. I can't even imagine how stressful it would be if I was betting like big money.
Well, Kimmy, there are 4 games last week that were decided on the final play, or one play changes your bet. One play at the end of the game. Can you imagine waiting 3 hours and you may even have a big bet? And there are these 4 games that had that, and it all got decided by one thing. And it could be a field goal. The Giants game was a field goal that missed by 2 inches, and that decided the bet. It can be a tipped pass. The guy stopped at the 1. Pittsburgh, the Steelers should have covered last week, but the Broncos ran out of timeouts. So Pittsburgh was kneeling on the ball at the 7-yard line of Denver when the game ended. If you're a Steelers bettor, you're saying, please, will you kick the field goal so I can cover this? It's crazy.
It is really an interesting dynamic watching the game when points are involved.
Yes.
I've always watched, I'm pretty sure my husband was, because I was like, no. And like I said, my games weren't even close. I didn't want them to get close. So
wait till it's a minute to go, and one play decides. And it's even worse when there are crowds and they're rooting against your team. Then you feel like everybody's out to get you. There's all these kinds of things that go into it. But these lines sort of set up for almost a 50% game, and you're going to get hot streaks and you're going to get some bad beats. So be ready for them.
Okay, Dave. Well, thank you again. I think I have my work cut out for me this week. We'll see what happens. And I guess I'll say goodbye until next week.
You got it. And we'll be happy to talk next week, Kimmy. Take care, hon.
Bye, Dave. Okay, so I am making my early bets. I have come to a decision after pondering the odds for quite a while. There are a lot of games that are really close in the point spread, and I don't really have a great feel for any of them like I did last week. So that's a little concerning to me. But here's what I've got. I've got the Arizona Cardinals at minus 5.5. And I believe that that is a good bet over the Detroit Lions. Dave didn't seem 100% sure that they were going to pull this out. He did advise that I bet small, so I did only put $10 on that game. He also mentioned Justin Herbert as a breakout, freshman. I guess freshman would be college. Rookie, that's the word I'm looking for, rookie quarterback with the Chargers. So I did pick the Chargers over the Panthers. I got the Chargers at minus 6.5. I looked at the Panthers, and they are pretty much at the bottom of everybody's NFL Week 3 rankings lists, which I just started looking at. So I looked at the Lines power rankings for Week 3 and CBS power rankings for Week 3, and they're at the bottom of both of those lists. So I feel a little okay about this bet. And then I finally chose the Pittsburgh Steelers at minus 3.5 over the Texans. I don't think the Texans have been playing very well. They're 0-2. And Dave said last week that the Steelers don't make a lot of mistakes, so I'm going to hope that they don't make a lot of mistakes this week. That's just sort of where my gut told me to go. I'm not sure I love any of these bets. I do love my Cardinals, so we're rooting hard for them. Overall, let me find out. I am wagering $30 to win $57.30. So fingers crossed. Not as excited about these bets as I were about my bets last week. So we're going to just hope we get a couple of those wins.